Millionaire adopts twins he found in trash. 3 years later, gets a shocking call. Why would a mysterious relative suddenly demand custody of the twins a billionaire rescued from the trash and legally adopted 3 years earlier? He prepared for a legal fight, but the truly shocking twist reveals the aunt is a fraud hired by a ruthless enemy from the millionaire's past plotting revenge and extortion. Subscribe, like, and listen now to hear this suspenseful story of love and resilience. The secure, private line to the lighthouse seldom rang. Rowan Everett glanced up from the intricate ship model he was assembling, a rare moment of quiet focus in the life he now shared with his 3-year-old daughters. Outside, the late afternoon sun glinted off the choppy Atlantic. Inside, Zoe and Zara chased each other around the circular room, their laughter echoing off the curved stone walls. He smiled, picking up the receiver. "Everett." Silence for a beat, then a woman's voice, cold and clipped, devoid of warmth. "Mr. Rowan Everett?" "Speaking. I'm calling regarding the children. Zoe and Zara. I understand you currently have custody." Rowan frowned, a prickle of unease running down his spine. "They're my legally adopted daughters." "Who is this?" "My name is Elena Vargas." The voice continued, smooth, practiced. "I am their maternal aunt, their closest living blood relative. I've only recently become aware of their circumstances, and frankly, Mr. Everett, it's time for them to come home, to their real family." The floor seemed to drop away beneath Rowan. Aunt? Blood relative? His mind raced back through the adoption files, the exhaustive search for any biological kin conducted 3 years ago, which had yielded nothing. "That's impossible," Rowan stated, his voice tight, gripping the receiver. "There were no known relatives." "Mistakes were made," the woman said dismissively. "Records can be incomplete, especially given the unfortunate circumstances under which you found them. The point is, I know who they are, and I want them back. They belong with their blood, Mr. Everett, not with a stranger in an isolated lighthouse." There was a subtle emphasis on stranger, a hint of accusation. "They're not going anywhere," Rowan said, his voice low and dangerous, protective instinct roaring to life. "They're my daughters." "We'll see about that," the woman replied, her tone hardening. "Perhaps the courts will feel differently. We wouldn't want things to get complicated, would we?" The line clicked dead. Rowan slowly lowered the receiver, his hand trembling slightly. He looked across the room at Zoe and Zara, now tumbling over cushions, their bright, innocent faces oblivious to the sudden, chilling threat that had just breached the sanctuary of their home. The peace he had painstakingly built over 3 years felt instantly fragile, vulnerable. Who was this woman? And why, after 3 years of silence, was she surfacing now? 3 years prior, Rowan Everett was a ghost haunting his own life. The 42-year-old architect of Everett Maritime, a global shipping conglomerate built through relentless drive and razor-sharp intellect, had abruptly walked away from the corner office, the corporate jets, the meaningless accumulation. A bitter divorce followed by a devastating personal loss, the details of which he kept locked away, had hollowed him out, leaving him seeking refuge in the one place that felt solid and real, the old, decommissioned lighthouse he'd inherited on a remote stretch of the Maine coast. He retreated into self-imposed exile, the rhythmic sweep of the, now decorative, light and the ceaseless crash of waves his only companions. Then came the storm and the impossible discovery. Investigating damage near the small harbor bordering his property, guided by the beam of his flashlight through sheeting rain, he heard a faint, mewling cry nearly swallowed by the wind, emanating from a sodden cardboard box dumped beside an overflowing trash bin. Inside, huddled together in a dirty, thin blanket were two tiny, impossibly fragile infants. Newborns, seemingly only days or weeks old, dark-skinned, shivering violently. Instinct overrode shock. Rowan swept them up, cradling them inside his heavy coat. Rushing back to the lighthouse's surprising warmth, he maintained it meticulously. He called 911, then his personal physician in Portland. The initial hours were a blur of doctors, police reports, social services involvement. The babies, miraculously unharmed despite their exposure, were temporarily placed in state custody while authorities searched for their parents or any relatives. No one came forward. The police investigation hit dead ends. They were Jane Doe's abandoned. As the weeks turned into months, Rowan found himself inextricably drawn to the infants, visiting them frequently at their temporary foster home. He, who had meticulously avoided emotional entanglement, felt an unexpected, fierce connection to these two small souls found in the darkness. When the state began the process of making them available for adoption, Rowan, shocking everyone, including himself, stepped forward. He hired Claire Monroe, a sharp, compassionate family law attorney based in Portland. The adoption process was arduous. As a wealthy, single white man seeking to adopt unrelated black infants, Rowan faced intense scrutiny from the courts and social services. Questions about his suitability, his understanding of transracial adoption challenges, his isolated lifestyle were relentless. Town gossip buzzed, but Rowan was methodical, determined. He provided exhaustive financial disclosures, underwent psychological evaluations, child-proofed every inch of the multi-level lighthouse, took parenting classes, and wrote a deeply personal letter to the judge outlining his commitment. Clara skillfully navigated the legal complexities. Finally, after nearly a year, the adoption was finalized. He named them Zoe, life or light, and Zura, blooming flower, symbols of a new beginning they represented for him and for each other. The lighthouse, once a monument to his solitude, transformed. Toys replaced nautical charts. Colorful drawings were taped to the stone walls. Lullabies replaced the mournful foghorn. Rowan learned the rhythms of childcare, midnight feedings, diaper changes, first steps, scraped knees, infectious giggles. He documented their lives meticulously, taking photos and videos, wanting them to know their story, his love for them unwavering despite the questions surrounding their origins. He rarely thought about his old life, his old rivals. One name occasionally surfaced in business news: Victor Hargrove, a ruthless competitor Rowan had thoroughly bested in a hostile takeover attempt years ago, forcing Hargrove into near bankruptcy before he clawed his way back. Rowan hadn't given him a second thought in years, content in his isolated, self-made family bubble. The phone call shattered the carefully constructed peace of Rowan's world. The cold, authoritative voice claiming kinship, demanding the return of his daughters, it felt like a violation, a direct assault on the family he had fought so hard to build and protect. After the initial shock subsided, Rowan's analytical mind kicked in. The call felt wrong, scripted. The woman, Elena Vargas, offered no warmth, no emotional connection one would expect from a long-lost aunt discovering her nieces. Her immediate jump to legal threats, her mention of the unfortunate circumstances, a detail not widely publicized, felt suspicious. And why now? 3 years after the adoption was legally finalized, after extensive searches had yielded no relatives. His first, immediate reaction was fierce protectiveness. He activated the lighthouse's enhanced security system, checked the perimeter cameras he'd installed during the adoption process. He reassured Zoe and Zara, who were sensitive to his moods, with hugs and forced smiles, shielding them from the anxiety, churning inside him. His second reaction was to call Clara Monroe. He recounted the conversation verbatim. Clara listened intently, her legal mind immediately identifying red flags. "This smells off, Rowan," she said grimly. The timing, the tone, the lack of prior contact. Claiming blood relation after a finalized adoption, especially with abandoned infants where parental rights were terminated by the state, is an extremely high legal bar. She need irrefutable proof, likely DNA. Clara advised caution. "Don't engage directly. Let me handle initial contact if she reaches out again. Document everything." "And Rowan, does the name Elena Vargas mean anything to you? Any past connections, however remote?" Rowan searches memory. Nothing. He spent hours online, searching for any mention of Elena Vargas connected to Maine, child services, or anything related to the time the twins were found. He found nothing credible. His initial goal became multifaceted. First, ensure the immediate physical safety of Zoe and Zara. Second, legally protect his parental rights against this sudden claim. Third, uncover the identity and true motives of Elena Vargas. Was she delusional, a scam artist, or something else? He authorized Clara to run searches on the name and to be prepared for legal filings. He also, drawing on old instincts, contacted Marcus Thorne, the discreet private investigator who had occasionally assisted Everett Maritime with sensitive corporate matters years ago. He tasked Thorne with a simple, urgent objective: find out everything possible about Elena Vargas and any potential connection to him or his past. A few days later, Elena Vargas contacted Clara Monroe, providing copies of documents, a purported birth certificate listing his sister with the same uncommon surname as Vargas, immigration records suggesting she was indeed the maternal aunt who had been living abroad and only recently learned of her sister's unnamed, tragic circumstances and the existence of the twins. Clara noted inconsistencies in the document formats and requested originals and DNA proof, stalling for time while Thorne investigated. Rowan felt caught in a sudden storm, the sanctuary of his lighthouse threatened by a ghost from a past that wasn't even his own. His life, once defined by corporate battles, was now consumed by a fight far more personal, protecting the two small lives that had become his entire world. He was determined to unmask Elena Vargas and defend his family, unaware that this mysterious aunt was merely the first move in a calculated game orchestrated by an old enemy. The legal battle commenced swiftly. Elena Vargas, represented by an aggressive out-of-state law firm, filed a petition in Maine family court seeking to vacate the adoption and gain custody of Zoe and Zara, citing newly discovered evidence of kinship. The petition included copies of the documents previously sent to Clara documents Clara's initial analysis suggested were likely sophisticated forgeries. Rowan and Clara geared up for the fight. Clara filed a robust response, challenging the validity of Vargas's documents, demanding DNA proof of kinship, and highlighting the finalized adoption, Rowan's proven fitness as a parent, and the potential trauma of uprooting the girls after 3 years in a stable home. The court ordered discovery and scheduled preliminary hearings. This legal maneuvering brought unwanted attention. Despite Clara's efforts to keep the proceedings sealed, details leaked. Anonymous tips fueled stories in local gossip blogs and even some less reputable mainstream outlets. Reclusive billionaire's mystery adoption challenged by blood relative. Questions raised about Everett twins' origins. The narrative subtly shifted, painting Rowan as potentially negligent or even complicit in hiding the children from their true family. The carefully constructed privacy around their lives began to crumble. Rowan found himself facing renewed scrutiny in the small coastal town. Whispers followed him at the local market. Parents at the twins' preschool cast sideways glances. The old questions about the transracial adoption resurfaced, now tinged with suspicion fueled by the rumors. Rowan, usually impervious, felt the sting, not for himself, but for the potential impact on Zoe and Zara. He doubled down on creating normalcy for the girls, maintaining their routines, showering them with affection, reading extra bedtime stories. But they sensed the tension. Zoe, the more verbally expressive twin, started drawing pictures of monster shadows outside the lighthouse windows. Zara, quieter and more observant, became unusually clingy, often asking Rowan, "You stay, Daddy? You not leave?" Marcus Thorne's investigation began yielding crucial information. Elena Vargas was an alias. Her real name was Ellen Croft, a former actress with a history of minor fraud convictions and significant debt. Thorne traced recent payments to Croft from an offshore account, an account he recognized. Years ago, during his corporate intelligence work for Rowan, Thorne had linked similar offshore accounts to shell corporations controlled by Victor Hargrove. The connection was immediate and chilling. Rowan felt a grim certainty lock into place. This wasn't about kinship, it was about Hargrove, his old rival, known for his ruthlessness and long memory, had somehow discovered the twins and concocted this elaborate scheme. But why? Revenge? Extortion? An attempt to destabilize Rowan personally while perhaps making another play for Everett Maritime assets? Clara advised caution. "We have the link, Rowan, but proving Hargrove orchestrated this entire fraud in court, especially within a family law context focused on the children's best interests, will be difficult without more direct evidence." Just as they were strategizing their next move, Zoe provided an unexpected clue. Showing Rowan one of her drawings, she pointed to a crudely drawn figure with slicked back hair standing near a car, talking to a woman with bright red lipstick. Ellen Croft often wore bold lipstick, Thorne's report had noted. Batman Zoe Vispiret talked to lipstick lady near the fishy store. Rowan realized Zoe might have witnessed a meeting between Victor, who matched the bad man description from old photos, and Ellen during one of their infrequent trips into town. It was a child's fragmented observation, but it was another piece suggesting direct coordination. The web was becoming clearer and infinitely more dangerous. Rowan knew he couldn't just defend. He had to find a way to expose Victor's entire malicious operation. The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture of calculated malice orchestrated by Victor Hargrove. Rowan knew defending the adoption in family court wasn't enough. Hargrove would likely continue his attacks through other means: smear campaigns, attempts to interfere with Rowan's business, perhaps even direct threats, as long as he perceived the twins as leverage or an obstacle. He needed a shift from defense to offense. Rowan decided to target the weakest link, Ellen Croft. He reasoned that Croft, a hired actress likely motivated purely by money and probably unaware of the full depth of Hargrove's ruthlessness or the potential criminal charges she faced for fraud and conspiracy, might be susceptible to pressure or a better offer. Working with Clara and Marcus Thorne, Rowan devised a plan. Thorne used discreet surveillance to track Ellen Croft's movements, discovering she frequently met with Hargrove's lawyer at a specific coffee shop in Portland to receive instructions and payments. Rowan decided to intercept her before one of these meetings. He arranged to be coincidentally at the same coffee shop, timing his arrival shortly before Ellen was due. He approached her table, feigning surprise. "MS. Vargas? Or should I say MS. Croft?" Ellen visibly paled, shock registering on her face before she could mask it. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. Rowan sat down opposite her, keeping his voice low but firm. My investigator is very thorough, Miss Croft. We know who you are. We know Victor Hargrove is paying you. We know the documents you filed are fraudulent. He slid a folder across the table containing copies of Thorne's findings, proof of her real identity, financial links to Hargrove's shell company. He then made his offer, not one of aggression, but of calculated leniency. This is conspiracy to commit fraud, potentially extortion, serious felonies. Hargrove is using you. When this collapses, he'll throw you under the bus without a second thought. But you have a chance to mitigate the damage. He paused, letting the weight of her situation sink in. Cooperate with us. Provide evidence against Hargrove Communications, payment details, anything proving he directed this scheme. Do that, and my lawyer might be able to argue for significantly reduced charges, perhaps even probation, based on your cooperation. He also hinted at providing financial assistance for her own legal counsel if she cooperated fully. Ellen was clearly terrified, torn between fear of Hargrove and the immediate threat of exposure and prosecution Rowan presented. Rowan didn't press for an immediate answer. Think about it, Miss Croft. Hargrove doesn't care about you or those children. He only cares about hurting me. Don't become collateral damage in his vendetta. My lawyer, Clara Monroe, will reach out with a secure contact method. He stood up and left, leaving Ellen trembling amidst the coffee shop bustle. This direct confrontation and offer was the turning point. Rowan had moved beyond reacting to Victor's moves and was now actively manipulating the situation, exploiting the weakness in Victor's conspiracy. He was leveraging his resources and intellect, not just to protect, but to dismantle the threat. He knew it was risky. Ellen could report back to Victor, potentially escalating things, but it felt necessary. He was no longer just defending his family. He was actively hunting the man who threatened them. The point of no return. By confronting Ellen and attempting to flip her, Rowan had declared open war on Victor Hargrove, setting the stage for a final, decisive confrontation. He instructed Clara and Thorne to prepare for Victor's inevitable, likely vicious, reaction. Rowan's gamble with Ellen Croft paid off, but not immediately. Ellen, terrified, initially went silent, likely reporting the encounter to Victor Hargrove or his lawyer. The expected backlash arrived swiftly. The smear campaign intensified, with more sophisticated, damaging articles appearing online, questioning Rowan's business ethics and fitness as a parent, clearly fed by inside information likely originating from Hargrove. Victor also filed an emergency motion in the custody case, demanding Rowan undergo immediate psychological evaluation and seeking temporary emergency custody for Elena Vargas, based on the escalating public concerns about Rowan's stability. It was a vicious counterattack designed to overwhelm Rowan legally and personally. Rowan felt the pressure acutely. The carefully constructed piece of the lighthouse felt constantly under siege. He found himself snapping at his small household staff, losing sleep, the old shadows he'd retreated from threatening to engulf him again. The twins, though shielded, felt his stress, becoming more withdrawn. Clara Monroe worked tirelessly, countering the legal motions, presenting evidence of Rowan's stability and the clear malicious intent behind the custody challenge and smear campaign. Marcus Thorne's team doubled down on security for Rowan and the girls, documenting the continued, albeit more cautious, surveillance likely orchestrated by Hargrove. Rowan realized he needed to regain control of the narrative. He couldn't remain hidden in his lighthouse while Victor defined him publicly. He decided on a calculated risk, a carefully managed interview with a single, respected journalist known for in-depth, ethical reporting. Working with Clara, He prepared a statement acknowledging the custody challenge, but reframing it, highlighting his loving, stable home, the finalized adoption, the suspicious timing of the claim, and hinting at external actors with ulterior motives attempting to exploit the situation without naming Hargrove directly yet. He provided documentation verifying the adoption process and testimonials supporting his character. The interview, published in a major New England newspaper, helped shift public perception, garnering sympathy for Rowan and casting doubt on the mysterious aunt's claims. It also served as a public signal to Victor Hargrove. Rowan wasn't backing down. Meanwhile, Ellen Croft, facing mounting legal pressure from Clara, who had formally requested depositions, and likely feeling abandoned by Hargrove, who probably saw her as increasingly unreliable, made her choice. She contacted Clara Monroe through the secure channel Rowan had offered. Terrified but desperate to save herself, she agreed to cooperate fully. Ellen provided Clara with copies of encrypted messages from Hargrove outlining the plan, details of the payments, and confirmation that the kinship documents were entirely fabricated by Hargrove's contacts. She admitted Hargrove coached her on what to say, promising her a large payout once Rowan was forced to settle to protect the children from scandal. She also confirmed Zoe's drawing was likely accurate. She had met Hargrove near the fish market in town to receive instructions. This was the concrete evidence they needed. Ellen's testimony, corroborated by the financial trails and Thorne's investigation, could potentially expose Hargrove's entire scheme not just in family court, but to criminal prosecutors for fraud, conspiracy, and extortion. Rowan, Clara, and Thorne began strategizing how best to deploy this new ammunition for maximum impact, ensuring Ellen's safety while setting the final trap for Victor Hargrove. The goal now was total victory. Dismiss the custody suit, secure criminal charges against Hargrove, and permanently end his threat. With Ellen Croft's cooperation secured, Rowan and Clara possessed the evidence needed to dismantle Victor Hargrove's scheme. Ellen provided a detailed, sworn affidavit outlining the entire conspiracy, corroborated by the encrypted messages and payment records. Clara prepared to submit this bombshell evidence to both the family court to dismiss the custody petition with prejudice, and, more significantly, to the Maine Attorney General's office, requesting a criminal investigation into Hargrove and Croft for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted extortion. Before they could file, Victor Hargrove, perhaps sensing Ellen's betrayal or simply making a final, desperate gamble, made his move. He contacted Rowan directly, bypassing the lawyers, proposing a face-to-face meeting at a neutral location, a private room, in an upscale Portland restaurant. The stated purpose, a man-to-man discussion to find a reasonable solution regarding the children away from the acrimony of the courts. Rowan immediately recognized it as a trap. Victor likely intended to either intimidate him into silence, offer a deceptive settlement designed to look good but contain hidden loopholes, or possibly even record the conversation selectively to twist Rowan's words later. He conferred urgently with Clara and Marcus Thorne. They devised a counter-strategy. Rowan would agree to the meeting, but on his terms. He insisted it take place in a conference room at Clara Monroe's law firm territory he controlled. He also stipulated that both his and Victor's primary attorneys must be present. Crucially, Rowan planned to be equipped with his own concealed recording device, legal under Maine's one-party consent law. His goal wasn't just to refuse Victor's offer, but to potentially bait Victor, in the presence of lawyers who could act as witnesses, into making further incriminating statements or revealing more about his motives and desperation. The final days leading up to the meeting were fraught with tension. Victor, through his lawyers, agreed to Rowan's terms, perhaps believing he could still manipulate the situation. Thorne's team maintained maximum security around Rowan, Clara, and especially Ellen Croft, who was now in protective custody pending her formal testimony. Rowan spent precious hours with Zoe and Zara, reading stories, building block towers, soaking in their presence, acutely aware of the stakes. Dark night. The night before the meeting, Rowan stood alone on the lighthouse catwalk, the beam cutting through the darkness. Doubt assailed him. Was this too risky? Was he putting himself in danger? What if Victor had another, unforeseen angle? He thought about the moment he found the twins, the promise he made to himself to protect them. He thought about Victor's smug face, the years of potential planning behind this attack. His resolve hardened. He owed it to Zoe, Zara, and even to the memory of whatever life had led their birth mother to abandon them, to see this through, to ensure their future was secure from predators like Hargrove. He reviewed the evidence with Clara one last time, ensuring every piece was ready. He was prepared for the final confrontation. The conference room at Clara Monroe's firm felt charged, electric. Rowan and Clara sat opposite Victor Hargrove and his visibly uncomfortable lawyer. A court reporter Clara had arranged sat discreetly at one end, documenting the proceedings officially. Rowan had already activated his personal recording device. Victor began, attempting his usual smooth charm, expressing regret over the misunderstandings and the pain this situation must be causing everyone, especially the children. He spoke of finding a mutually agreeable path forward, hinting at a generous financial settlement for MS. Vargas, Ellen Croft, and shared custody arrangements, framing it as being in the twins' best interest to know their blood relatives. Rowan let him talk, observing his calculated performance. Then he cut him off. Victor, let's dispense with the charade. There is no MS. Vargas, there is only Ellen Croft, a woman you hired. Victor's lawyer immediately objected, but Rowan pressed on, his voice cold and precise. We know about the payments from your shell corporation, Victor. We know about the fabricated documents. We know you orchestrated this entire scheme, not out of concern for Zoe and Zara, but out of spite and greed, likely as leverage against me or Everett Maritime. Victor's composure cracked. That's slander. You have no proof. Oh, but we do, Rowan said calmly. He nodded to Clara, who placed a file on the table. This contains a sworn affidavit from MS. Ellen Croft, detailing your entire conspiracy, including copies of your encrypted messages instructing her on how to proceed. As Victor stared at the file in disbelief, Rowan played a brief, damning audio clip from his own recording of Ellen. He just wants Everett's money. He said tell Rowan the girls need their real family. It was all Victor's idea. Victor lunged across the table, enraged, trying to grab the file or Rowan's recorder. You set me up. That recording is illegal. Actually, Clara interjected smoothly. Maine is a one-party consent state, Mr. Hargrove. And MS. Croft provided her testimony voluntarily. At that precise moment, as Victor stood exposed and sputtering threats, two detectives from the Maine Attorney General's office entered the room, accompanied by Marcus Thorne. They had been waiting nearby, alerted by Clara once the meeting began and likely reviewing the affidavit she had pre-submitted. Victor Hargrove, the lead detective, announced, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, witness tampering, and attempted extortion." Hargrove stared, utterly defeated, as handcuffs were secured around his wrists. His lawyer stood by, pale and silent. Rowan watched him being led away, a wave of grim satisfaction washing over him, quickly followed by immense relief. The direct threat was neutralized. The arrest and subsequent prosecution of Victor Hargrove and Ellen Croft were swift. Faced with Ellen's testimony, the digital evidence, and the recordings, both ultimately pleaded guilty. Hargrove received a significant prison sentence, effectively ending his business career and threat to Rowan. Ellen received probation due to her cooperation. The fraudulent custody case was immediately dismissed. Rowan chose to handle the aftermath quietly, focusing on restoring normalcy for Zoe and Zara. He issued a brief public statement through Clara, confirming the adoption's validity and referencing the successful resolution of external legal challenges, without feeding the gossip cycle further. He invested heavily in enhanced digital and physical security for his family and businesses. Life in the lighthouse returned to its peaceful rhythm, but with a deeper sense of security. Rowan, freed from the looming threat and the secrets of the past, found himself more present, more joyful as a father. He continued documenting the girls' lives, adding a new chapter to the story of how their family faced down a threat together, emphasizing their strength and resilience. Inspired by the ordeal and the outpouring of support he received after the story became known, despite his efforts at privacy, Rowan worked with Clara to establish the Twin Lights Adoption Fund. The foundation focused on providing legal aid and financial resources for families pursuing complex adoptions, especially those involving sibling groups or children emerging from difficult circumstances, and advocated for ethical adoption practices. Zoe and Zara blossomed, their early trauma seemingly buffered by the unwavering love and stability Rowan provided. The lighthouse wasn't just a home. It was their fortress, a symbol of safety and belonging. One evening, years later, Rowan sat with the now slightly older girls on the lighthouse catwalk, watching the stars emerge over the dark ocean. Zoe snuggled against him. "Remember the bad man, Daddy?" she asked softly. "Yes, I remember," Rowan said. "He didn't win," Zara stated matter-of-factly, pointing towards the steady beam sweeping across the water. "Our light is stronger." Rowan pulled them both closer, tears pricking his eyes not of sadness, but of profound gratitude. Finding two infants in a storm-swept trash bin had led him down an unexpected, perilous path, but it had ultimately brought him here, to this moment of simple, perfect peace. He hadn't just saved them that night. They, in turn, had saved him, guiding him back to a life filled with purpose, resilience, and an extraordinary, unshakable love.